Welcome to the Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. My name is Rob Peeters, and joining me, as always, is Josh Roller. We have a fun show in store for you this week because IndyCar officially kicked off month of May activities with the GMR Grand Prix this weekend, while NASCAR made its now lone stop in Dover, the first state, which my fiance reminds me that is the fact every single time that she mentions it, because she's from Delaware, and she likes to mention that fact. So, anyway, we were in Dover. We were in Dover over the past weekend in NASCAR. But, of course, there were other races that I watched over the weekend that I think I'll take some time to discuss. Hopefully, time permits that, and I don't go over time, because sometimes I can. And, well, let's just be honest. If you're a long-time listener to this podcast, you know we can get on some good topics. But hey, that's why we enjoy having conversations with you guys. Tell us what you think anytime. Use the hashtag RobinRoller. Join the conversation anytime you want. We'll go ahead. We monitor that hashtag anytime you want. We love to talk with our fans, talk with anybody, have a good conversation. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. We're happy to have you along for the ride. And please follow us on social media if you haven't already. I'm at rpeeters33, that's RPEETERS33. Josh is at roller_01, ROLLER_01, and the show is at Robin Roller, spelled just ROBANDROLLER. I've got another May-specific segment coming up here at the end, so I'm going to turn things over to Josh to get this show, no pun intended, rolling here with his Rollers Racing Report.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, pretty exciting weekend here. Let's kick it off over with the news. Formula One, just as quickly as it arrived, it has departed. The Turkish Grand Prix, the replacement for the Canadian Grand Prix, has been canceled. Turkey was placed on the UK government's red list, meaning anyone traveling to Turkey from the UK and back would need to quarantine in a government hotel upon their return. The changes bumped the French Grand Prix up 1 week and added an additional race at Austria's Red Bull Ring, creating a second edition of the Styrian Grand Prix. And it is noted that Formula One wants to reschedule Turkey and China in the season, if possible. Basically, my guess would be if other races end up getting canceled and you're able to go back there, I kind of am questioning that, whether it will actually happen, especially China, but hey, we'll see.
Yeah, you can't add races on. I mean, you're pushing the schedule already as is, man.
Yeah, you're not going to. These will not return unless other races fall off at the right moment. I mean, yeah. I don't go to the Las Vegas betting booth and bet that Turkey and China are coming back. We don't do that. McLaren will run a throwback livery in Monaco for their partner Gulf Oil International. It will be a full throwback with uniforms for the team personnel and like driver uniforms too. It's really cool. Yeah. It was a throwback to the GTR at Le Mans in the 1990s. Then this was pretty cool too. McLaren drivers Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris are urging the F1 paddock to follow NASCAR's lead to have a throwback weekend. And it's tough to pick out one race, I would say, to have a throwback, but man, if it's not Monaco, they're doing it wrong, in my opinion.
It has to be Monaco. I mean, if you're going to, like, people always complain about the quality of racing at Monaco. Well, if you want to, at the very least, make Monaco a big deal to people, again, you got to put the throwback weekend on. You got to make people actively look forward to it, regardless of how the racing is going to be. You know, you have to make Monaco something to look forward to. The best way to do that, I think, is to getting to see your favorite F1 liveries run again, all up and down the paddock. I screaming up and down the streets of Monaco. I think that would be great. I really would appreciate to see that. Now, I wonder what the logistics of it are, if sponsors would go along with that. But hey, if McLaren can get it done, I wonder if everybody else can, if we can get along with it. You know, if we can push it as a big time opportunity to engage the fans. I think that would be a great opportunity because, hey, when you're talking about engagement with potential customers, I think sponsors should be all in on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That you brought up a really good worry that the problem with selecting Monaco, in my opinion, I think it's the only choice. I'll give you Silverstone as a second, but to me Monaco is the obvious choice. But is that Monaco is the biggest race of the year? It's the glitz, it's the glamour. the companies that put their names on the side of the cars are going to want to see the main livery out there, much like why Throwback Weekend for NASCAR was moved to Darlington in May and taken away from the Southern 500 because it's the playoff race. It's a playoff race now, unlike it was a couple years ago. That's the problem I see, but we'll see. I do hope F1 follows this. That would be really cool to have them have a Throwback Weekend. On to IndyCar here. Hey, we talked about this guy last week. Colton Herta has signed a 2-year extension with Andretti Autosport, keeping the young American driver in IndyCar through 2023. Be interesting if Ferrari called tomorrow, but he's there. Let's hope he stays. He's a fun talent and fun guy to watch. For the second straight season, the Honda Indy Toronto race at Toronto's Exhibition Place has been canceled due to COVID-19. No immediate replacement has been announced, but as we've discussed before, Green Savory Racing Promotions also promotes the upcoming races at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course and Portland International Raceway. My guess would be that one of these are going to become a double header weekend, but I would say, hey, give Iowa a call. Give Iowa a call, and I don't know if they race the same weekend that the ARCA Series is there in late July, but man, let's have an ARCA IndyCar doubleheader there. This is a tad bit late, but
it's acceptable. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just would like to say to Mr. Penske, any oval is acceptable at this point. I am on my knees. I do not care. While I would like Michigan, I am open to any oval. Please do not give us another freaking road course or something. Please, just give me an oval. I don't care if nobody shows up. Just give it to me. I'm begging you. I will show up. I will show up. If you have an oval race anywhere near the surrounding states of Indiana, and okay, I will make an exception. I will probably go. No, yeah, I would probably try and go to Nashville if you decided to go follow NASCAR's lead and go race at Nashville again. But really, any surrounding oval track. So this is Kentucky, Chicagoland, Michigan, anything like that, and including Nashville. If you even want to go to Nashville too, that's totally fine. I'm not complaining. Go ahead and do that. I will go to those races. That is, mark my words, Mr. Penske. Mark my words, okay? I don't care what it takes. I will make sure that I'm at those races to support them if you go to an oval track. That's all I'm going to say, Josh. Continue on with the news.
All right. This is, like I said, this is a tad bit late, but Top Gun Racing made its on-track debut at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway last week with R.C. Enerson behind the wheel of the number 75 Chevrolet. They are expected to be the 36th entry in the Indianapolis 500. Adam Stern, Sports Business Journal, this is very sad, reports that it is likely NBC will not renew its contract with IndyCar. We'll talk more about this later in the show.
No more Paul Tracy. No more Paul Tracy.
There's Rob's little editorial there for y'all and his.
No more Paul Tracy, potentially Alan Bestwick. I see no problems except for if CBS takes like 80 commercial breaks and does whatever they do to Formula E's broadcast, which is just garbage. I don't know. I don't know. You can't get any worse than like ABC, ESPN in 2005. But I mean, you can come close, I guess. I don't know. We'll see.
Rick Ware and Dale Coyne have withdrawn the number 52 entry from the Indianapolis 500. Cody Ware tested and completed rookie orientation practice, but could not find sponsorship in time. So only the 51 with Pietro Fittipaldi will be Rick Ware colors at the 500, or hopefully in the 500, I should say. There's no guarantee. Minor piece of news here, but Alan Bestwick is doing track PA at IMS in place of Bob Jenkins this season. I know he's battling cancer, but is he retired? Did he retire?
No, I don't think he formally retired. He's just taking a step back while he battles cancer.
Yeah, I didn't think.
We still wish Bob Jenkins all the best.
Yes,
but it was really cool. I got to admit, I was at the race on Saturday as a fan, and it was really nice hearing Alan Bestwick. I think when I first heard his voice come over track PA, I just felt this feeling of warmth, and like it's like when Bob Jenkins is on PA, you feel good. And there's not very many announcers. Not to say Dave Calabro does a bad job. Dave Calabro was great, but. By the way, I went to preschool with his son. That's something that I don't think anybody ever will remember, but I remember it. But anyway, my point is, it's just really nice to hear that because, you know, Bob Jenkins and Alan Bestwick both were voices of the 500 on television for many years. And so it was great to hear Alan Bestwick get a chance to call track PA, and it's great to see him having more work now. He's going to be calling SRX races here later this summer, and now he's on track PA at IMS. So it's great to hear Alan Bestwick's voice. It's good that he's able to find work, and that everybody respects him as much as we do, because he's a great announcer. He loves the sport. He knows the sport. He's perfect. It's great to see Alan Bestwick back to track PA. So I'm glad we included that today, because I really thought it was a nice treat over the week. I still hope Bob Jenkins gets well and is able to come back next year and do track PA. But hearing Alan Bestwick in the interim is just really nice.
Agreed. So on to the last little mini segment here with NASCAR news. In case you live under a rock, Junior Motorsports won its appeal of Noah Gragson's disqualifications after the Darlington race. This restores 54 points and his victory of the Dash for Cash $100,000 bonus. So that took AJ Allmendinger out, making him 3 for 3 for 2021, but it didn't stay that way. He ended with 3 of 4. A little teaser, Josh Berry won that one. So Junior Motorsports did do a clean sweep there, but very important for him. Takes him a little bit way off the bubble there, and he's $100,000 richer.
In a technicality, let's say if this was like the Dash for Cash was like the old Winston Million or the old Noble 5 prize award, wouldn't he technically have qualified for it by winning like 3 out of the 4 races?
All you had to do is win 3 out of the 4.
Yeah, so he would have technically, if this was the Winston or something, he would have basically won it anyway. With that,
yeah, this is the Winston Million. He would have won the $1 million, and the big bank truck would have been driving around Darlington with fake dollar bills flying out the back.
I know it's totally arbitrary and it matters not to anybody, but I think about stuff like that sometimes. I wish
that existed in the Cup Series again. That would be too. It just adds more incentive, and maybe not make it the crown jewel races. Make it ones that like, hey, we got to do a little boost here for this one, but crown jewel races would still be cool. 15,000 fans will be admitted to Sonoma Raceway in June, and it will be the largest Bay Area event in over a year. And then Charlotte Motor Speedway announced that it will operate at full capacity on Memorial Day weekend. So we're opening back up. More fans are going there. It's good to see Sonoma back. Sonoma is one of my favorite road courses out there. So to see it back on this, we're going there and have fans. We're cooking with peanut oil now. I like it. It's good. Texas Motor Speedway's Eddie Gossage will step away from his duties following the NASCAR All-Star race, but isn't calling it a retirement. So, he's been there since the beginning of Texas Motor Speedway, and he was there a number of years with Speedway Motorsports before Texas Motor Speedway was built. So, this is a kind of a big moment. Someone new is going to step into some pretty big shoes at Texas Motor Speedway.
I've always respected Eddie Gossage and always appreciated what he does to keep IndyCar in Texas. So I was sad when I heard this, because it kind of just made me worried for the future of IndyCar in Texas. And I respect the fact, I know I trash the race. I trash the race surface all the time. But let's be honest, IndyCar and Texas need each other. And it would be outrageously disappointing if someone new came in and kind of did away with everything Eddie Gossage has worked to build within the IndyCar and Texas Motor Speedway relationship. So I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that whoever they appoint or whoever gets the job, ends up caring about IndyCar at Texas and trying to do something to make the racing better, because it is a good track and it has produced the greatest IndyCar races of all time. Between Texas and Chicagoland, I cannot think of 2 other racetracks that have produced more memorable IndyCar races in their entire histories. Texas, it's one of those tracks that I think drivers want to win at almost as much as they want to win Long Beach or Road America or something like, another prestigious racetrack that's not Indianapolis. I think Texas means something. Because of its history in the IRL and in IndyCar now. Dating back again to 97, Texas hosting the first ever open wheel race at night. That's something that people don't realize, is we're used to some IndyCar races being at night. Iowa being at night. Richmond was at night for so many years. Chicagoland was at night. Kentucky was at night for a long time. But back in 97, it had not been done before until Eddie Gossage said, hey, we've got lights here. What if we ran this IndyCar race in prime time? And they did. And it was a success. And the racing was fantastic. And it continued to be fantastic for many years. So I appreciate Eddie Gossage and all he's done for IndyCar. And I wanted to say that because I'm sad to see him stepping down. While I don't agree with everything he's done as a president, I have a crazy amount of respect for him as a businessman specifically. I appreciate what he's done for the sport of IndyCar and for the sport of racing. It's just disappointing that I think his legacy could potentially be overshadowed by the new surface, which I hope it's not. I hope that gets fixed and then people kind of forget about it as time goes on and remember Eddie Gossage for all that he did for the sport of racing instead of the questionable decision he made at the end of his tenure. That's all I've got to say about that. I just wanted to make a note of that because I've always thought highly of Eddie Gossage, and I felt like I should use my podcast as an opportunity to speak my mind on that. So, Josh, go ahead and you can continue on with the news. I hope I'm not taking it too long.
We got a couple more. No, you're good. We got a couple more race start points here. A lot to do with COTA. But first, Austin Cindric will return to the NASCAR Cup Series for a fifth start of 2021 at Road America, July 4th weekend. So that's good to see Austin. He's really good at Road America. I mean, this, I think, might be a really good shot to see. I don't want to call it. He's got an upshot upset, like one of the regulars like Chase Elliott, but he could be like, could he be the top Penske car?
I like considering him to be like a road course ringer with a legitimate shot, just like the old days.
Yeah,
he's like the new Boris said. I mean, Boris said is not going to run full time for Penske next year, but point is he's got a shot in it. He's in a good car and he's a good road racer. So
yeah, agreed. Tyler Reddick will attempt to qualify Jordan Anderson Racing's number 31 Chevrolet at Circuit of the Americas this weekend in the Xfinity Series. Remember, because of the rain out, they didn't get a chance to qualify. They didn't get a chance to earn points. This is the first time they've been able to race because not any cars have dropped out for them to make the race. So I think he can use a championship provisional since he started a race this year. Started races this year.
That would help a lot.
So
because then
that would help a lot.
No matter what.
Yes, I think so. So that would be good for that team to start getting some owners' points, and if they can do well, get up there. Cole Custer will also attempt to qualify Rick Ware Racing's number 17 Ford in the Xfinity Series for some bonus experience for the Cup Series.
The Xfinity Series is getting all these Cup drivers, but the cool part about it is they're in like, we're going to explain it here in a little bit. There's another piece of news that's down here at the bottom. It's coming up here, but
I'll go ahead and share it now.
Go ahead and share it now because it raised perfectly in. You're going to have Cup drivers double dipping, but they're going to be in what I would assume to be completely garbage cars.
Well, this logging laps at this point, maybe. Kevin Harvick will enter this weekend's Xfinity race at COTA driving the number 5 Rush Truck Center's Ford Mustang for BJ McLeod Motorsports. And that's usually a Chevrolet out there with Matt Mills in the car. Yeah. So very crazy there. GMS Racing, ARCA Menard Series driver Jack Wood will be in the 24 truck for GMS at COTA. Further replacements for the Rafael Lessard release. And then the last 2 points here. Ty Majeski will drive a 5th ThorSport Racing Toyota at Charlotte Motor Speedway and Nashville Super Speedway. And even sooner than that, Rob, I'm sure you're happy. I'm happy
about this. I'm not saying I woke up to this. I had a nap this morning. But I started work. I found this news, and I was so happy about this. Josh, tell us all about it.
This is the only good thing to come out of my visit from the North Carolina DMV today. I was like, this brightens up my day. Paul Menard will be behind the wheel of a ThorSport Toyota at COTA this weekend. Heck to the yeah.
It's going to be sponsored by Menards, right? I assume.
I would assume so. I mean, why wouldn't he? But I really felt like last year we were going to see Paul Menard in an Xfinity race or two for Team Penske. But with COVID, I was just about to say with COTA. With COVID, I think maybe while those plans, I'm completely speculating there. If there was any truth to that, they were shelved high and away, way back in the room in a U.S. government facility out in the middle of the Nevada desert. So yeah, good to see Paul Menard back behind the wheel. We miss him. Paul Menard, who is still Twitterless.
He'll never have a Twitter, probably like Carl Edwards. And
No,
here, someone tweeted something hilarious I saw, and I'm not taking credit for it, but I can't remember who tweeted it, but they said, Paul Menard, if he goes out there in the Truck Series and wins, all he'll do is he'll wave to everybody, smile, and walk back to his pastures in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And not saying a word, never saying a word.
You know what? Keep running that Menard Racing and Menard's Empire there. So, all right. That's it for that. Rob, what's our next segment?
Yeah, we're looking at a featured paint scheme here. So our featured paint scheme is a really fun segment that we always do every show. Like I said, if you're new to the show, we like to keep you guys in the loop. We don't want to keep you guys out of the loop. We want to tell you what's going on. So a featured paint scheme here is going to be the 1999 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, and we have picked a paint scheme from this year and this series that we like the most and that we want to highlight on this show. So, Josh, why don't you go ahead and start us off and tell us all about the paint scheme that you picked for this week's featured paint scheme?
Yeah, this wasn't necessarily my favorite, but one of the more unique ones of the year. I'm picking Scott Hansen and Ken Schrader's number 52 Oakwood Homes Chevrolet. Now, that sponsor might sound familiar. It did sponsor Joe Nemechek there for a few years with NAPG Racing in the Cup Series. The 15 car in the Busch Series. Yeah, and I forget who was the driver.
It was Schrader. It was Schrader for a while.
Yeah, Schrader might have been, but I feel like there might have been another one. But anyways, the truck was blue wrapped around the sides, then white on the hood and deck lid, then blue again on the top roof. You know, really just, we're talking two-tone here. A little bit of fade here and there, but basically just a two-tone Chevrolet. Man, that sounds really fun right now. I feel like I just took myself back to the 1950s. I digress. The valance was white, and then around the bottoms edges there was maybe a little bit more than just the valance and the side skirts, but the bottom was white. The number was also white. Scott Hansen got the season off to a really great start with a 7th place finish at Homestead, but ultimately was typically like a 13th to 18th place truck each week through the first 24 races of the season. He did finish with 1 top 5 at Nazareth, and then 3 total top 10s, Homestead, Bristol, and in Nazareth. Ken Schrader took over the driving responsibilities for the season finale at Fontana, but crashed on lap 17 and finished last, 36th. So not the day in Fontana, California on probably what was a bright sunny day that Ken Schrader wanted to do. So anyways, that was mine. I really like the truck. Just kind of was scrolling through pictures of 1999, and I'm like, I don't like that one. It kind of it speaks early glimpses of 2001, and that was the first year I really started watching NASCAR. So Rob, tell us about yours.
Yeah, so mine is one of my favorite looking NASCAR trucks of all time, and I proudly have a diecast of this. This is actually one of my favorite diecasts that I own, is because first of all, Truck Series diecasts are just so hard to come by, but True. You can really find a lot of them from the 90s if you look hard enough. Actually, go to like swap meets or train shows or stuff like that, and you will actually find a lot of old diecasts usually being sold for like $1 or something. And usually if you could find a couple of trucks, grab them because those are freaking awesome. But this one is my favorite one. What do you want to say?
Oh, I was just going to say there's this place in Kokomo where I'm from. You know, Rob, you know that. I don't know if the fans, if they don't know if our listeners remember that. But there was a it wasn't an antique store. It's more like a vendor store. And this guy was selling diecast, 1/64th diecast, like for $1, $2, $3. I couldn't go in there without dropping $40. Exactly. Alone. I come like that one. And he always like would restock them too. And then now I think he sold through all his stuff of the old stuff, and now he's got a bunch of I don't want to call it newer stuff, but it was like COT era stuff, which just doesn't interest me as much. I did grab a number of old Busch and Truck Series.
See, what I like, I know we're getting off topic here, but see, what I like to collect is actually, have you ever been to Lucas Oil Raceway in Gearheads? That's right out in front of that?
I have not.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so first of all, if you ever are going to go to Gearheads, it's easy to get to. If you can find Lucas Oil Raceway, you can find Gearheads. It's literally the same exact place. It's right next to the entrance, right? It's only open on Fridays and Saturdays, I think. now. It used to be open. They had a location in Broad Ripple for a while, and then they moved that location to one, I think, closer to like Pike High School on near 71st Street.
Yeah.
And then they moved to their current location, which is literally in what looks like some dude's house. It's not a house, I promise you. You can walk right in. You know, there's a screen door and everything. You can totally don't worry. You can walk right in there, and there'll be a whole bunch of die casts that'll just be sitting there. Usually in that screen door, you'll be like $1 or something, or like a couple of bucks, and then you walk into the actual store, which is again would appear set up like somebody's house and have different rooms. But it has all the die casts on display and everything you can buy. And I had been going there. I've been going there since I was real little. In fact, I went there the last time I went there, and this sounds terrible. It's been so long since I've been there. The last time I was there, I believe it was in 2015, and the guy that was checking me out said he remembered me from when I was a kid.
Dang.
And he said, now he was making a joke. He's like, now you're here all by yourself, and you probably got your own job and everything, so you doing everything you want. I'm like, yeah, I'm here because I got extra money I'm going to drop and get a whole bunch of, I think it was 2014 diecasts I got. Because I really, 2014, 2015, and a little bit of 2016 had some really, really good paint schemes that I try and get. But anyway, as I was saying, this is Greg Biffle. I'm talking about Greg Biffle, his number 50 Granger Ford F-150 from 1999. So this is my favorite NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series truck of all time. Greg Biffle, this is, the 99 truck is my favorite. So there were some really great paint schemes during their tenure as Greg Biffle's sponsor, but this one is easily my favorite because it incorporates the Granger logo into the paint scheme itself. So back then, Granger's logo was kind of like the text written out on a white background with red bold lines, I guess, horizontal lines, perpendicular lines, or parallel lines, excuse me, I forgot, I briefly had a brain fart, forgot geography, parallel lines, basically encompassing that. So basically what they did was they took the Granger logo and they incorporated that logo into the rest of the paint scheme. So the logo kind of slides off into like this cool little looking design on the side of the truck. And it goes and it does the same thing on the front of the truck and then on the deck lid of the truck. It's just, and even on the rear of the truck, the rear of the truck. So it's like it's so creative because of that. Because I can't remember, there's maybe the Tide Ride maybe did it a little bit. They incorporated their logo into the overall paint scheme. I'm sure there's others that have done it, but this one was one of my favorites because of that. I always appreciated the way they did it. Now when Granger ended up changing their logo, I think the next year they changed the paint scheme to something a little bit different. But I still love the 99 truck. That was a great one. Now, fun fact about this one here is Greg Biffle had 9 wins in 1999. He was completely dominant. This was rookie year in trucks. Completely dominant, but finished second in the championship.
To who?
It's crazy. It's only
to
second.
Who did he finish second to?
Tell me, Josh. I forget. I didn't even look it up.
Jack Sprague. Guy who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, if Biffle's going to go in the Hall of Fame, then Jack Sprague should too, of course. Duh.
Yeah.
And if Biffle goes in before Jack Sprague, we'll have a problem. Because Biffle's not even retired yet, and so I don't even know what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm going to move on here, because before I say something really crazy and people just shred me to bits on Twitter. Let's go into talk about some of the races that happened over the weekend. The Xfinity Series was at Dover. Josh, I got to tell you the honest truth. I was at the race. I was at the Indy Grand Prix during this race. So to tell you the truth, I missed it. So from what I understand, it looks like Junior Motorsports had a pretty good day. But I don't know much more than that. I know you didn't watch the Cup Series race. I did, so I could talk a little bit more about the Cup Series race. But for you, I'm going to have to let you take over the Xfinity race because I had a lot of other races I ended up watching, and it rolled around Sunday night, and I was like, shoot, I haven't watched the Xfinity race.
Well, this race really was kind of a Justin Allgaier, Josh Berry show. Looking at it here, Justin Allgaier led almost half the 44 laps. Berry led another 48. I mean, these guys were the best cars the majority of the race. It came down to the final restart, which was with 56 56 to go. Yeah, 56 to go, and Cindric took the lead. I mean, he took the lead about 51 to go and led this the rest of the way and just started yarding these guys. I mean, he took off, and then now the race the broadcast focused on Barry and Allgaier because they were going for the Dash for Cash money bonus, whereas Gragson kind of struggled all day a little bit. Brandon Jones was involved in wreck. I mean, did you see the wreck?
I did see the wreck. I saw the wreck. I saw videos of it on Twitter. So, yeah, I did see the wreck.
That was pretty crazy. I mean, Dover just kind of comes out here and says, hey, you know what? We're going to have some random crazy wreck today. And, I mean, that's just what Dover is. I mean,
everybody underestimates how tough Dover is.
Yes, and how tough Dover is just on cars, not just had to drive, but when you crash, you might crash wild. But yeah,
if according to the Cup Series, it could be pretty tough on tires when they get low too.
Mm-hmm. That's very true, very true. But I thought this race was solid. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to maybe write this one off because only 12 cars finished on the lead lap. It was very, very caution filled to begin with, and then like the second half of the race didn't have a whole lot. JRM dominates. So if you're not a JRM fan, you're not a Chevrolet fan, you're probably going like, I don't want it. But hey, Austin Cindric went up there. It kind of proves though that hey, let's keep working at this car. Let's keep working on as our race progresses, and we have something out here to chase. All right, and Cindric and that Team Penske organization, they went out there and they stole this win away from Junior Motorsports. It really should have been Barry. I think Barry had the better long run car there at the end compared to Justin Allgaier. Justin Allgaier fired off really good. He had more control, and Barry I think has had the longer run speed. But hey, when you're out there and you have nothing to mark, hey, I have nowhere to judge myself, right? We've talked about this before. You've heard commentators talk about before. Why is there some teams dominate for years and then they fall back? Well, you can't chase yourself, and that's what Cindric did. And he went out there and spanked them there at the end. I'm sorry, he spanked them. He stole the win and he spanked them. I really think this should have been a second win for Josh Berry. I really do. But hey. Things happen. Good car. I mean, you saw loose conditions, which was what we want to see, right? We see it all the time with Xfinity Series. I don't even know why I keep bringing it up, but we see it. But it was a good race. I enjoyed it. Good one there. And Rob, like you mentioned, you were at the GMR Grand Prix. Unfortunately, due to government forces, I was not able to watch. I recorded both the GMR Grand Prix and the Cup Series race. I was able to watch the highlights, though. The GMR Grand Prix looked like a good race.
Yeah, it was actually really fun. First of all, not just from a spectator standpoint, I want to first of all say fantastic job to IMS this weekend. First race with fans since Harvest Grand Prix when it had a little bit of fans, but not very many. But it was actually very seamless. I bought tickets literally the night before, and I had flex tickets, which were great. You could get up, you could move around, you could do whatever you want. Obviously mask mandates, which are great. I'm vaccinated. I have been vaccinated, so I left mine on. I left mine on except for when I was having beer or eating something in the stands. So that's what you gotta try. It's what you gotta do. You gotta be safe, especially when you're around there. But it was really, really good race. Overall, there was some great support series races. We'll talk about the Indy Lights race here in a little bit. Oh my god. And it's actually going to be a great segue into my featured topic tonight. But overall, for the Indy Grand Prix, it was just fantastic. And like I said, shout out to IMS for getting it done, having fans here safely. Great job. Like I said, I was disappointed that I couldn't cover it, but getting an opportunity to watch it as a fan again is always fun. But anyway, Roman Grosjean started on the pole, and I really thought that he was going to run away with this. I really felt like it was Grosjean's race to lose. And ultimately, his pit crew lost him this race. And really, here's the thing. Here's the thing about this race is it was great strategy. You watch it like a Formula One race, especially even when I'm sitting here, I got no other information. I don't have as much information as I'm used to when I'm watching one of these Grand Prix because I'm usually in the media center and I'm paying attention to them from a much more intricate and in-depth view. But this was still fun because it was interesting, kind of trying to guess which strategies each team was on and what driver was pulling what strategy. Grosjean going the first 25 laps on a set of reds was whoo, and keeping the pace that he was keeping was very impressive. I mean, he had one heck of a race, and then just at the end there, that last pit stop, Rinus VK's pit crew just nails the undercut and gets him out in front of Grosjean, pulls out an 8-second gap, and Grosjean got held up by Bourdais, who didn't get a blue flag until about 3 laps to go. So some controversy there. Interesting. There's a note here about Jack Harvey. Jack Harvey had a rough day. Well, he had a great day going, but then he had a disastrous pit stop, and it dropped him back to 23rd, a lap down, racing with Jimmie Johnson, who I have to add. Here's my thing about Jimmie Johnson. Because I love Jimmie. I love seeing what he's doing. But, man, it is painful to watch him out there just logging laps. I mean, you know what he's doing.
Wasn't he on pace? Wasn't he on a pretty good pace?
No, he was not.
He wasn't? Okay.
He was not. It was the roughest part about it, honestly, was when they took the green. Because here's where I was sitting was in turn 1 for the Grand Prix. I sat in the Northwest Vista for Indy Lights race and the Indy Pro 2000 race and the USF 2000 race. I sat in Northwest Vista. So that's turn 4 of the Oval. I sat in turn 1 of the Oval for the Grand Prix because I was meeting up with some of my fans. Shout out to Josh Mertz, Victor Valley. Hope you guys are listening. I don't think you are, but I hope you guys are. But anyway, if you are, drop me a line. And anyway, so I sat there, and it was really, really sad because I was watching Jimmie Johnson, and from the moment he took the green flag, it just looked like he was losing about half a second every lap to the car in front. And it was just getting really hard. And I mean, by the time the first round of pit stops rolled around, I mean, he was close to like half the track behind, a lap and a half down already. And, you know, I understand he's out there logging laps. It's one giant test session for him. His goal this year is to beat Max Chilton and Dalton Kellett. Also, by the way, fun fact about Max Chilton, this happened. Did you know he withdrew from the Indy GP because he couldn't get here. He had travel issues, which are very prevalent in COVID era time. He actually didn't get there until later that night. He arrived the day of the Grand Prix, but his plane didn't land until long after everybody had gone home. So disappointing. I know Max loves Indy, and I felt so bad for him because I looked at his Instagram, and he seemed so sad. Like, his post just seemed so sad. He seemed so depressed that he wasn't there, and I can understand with as much as this. I mean, this guy, Indy is the only oval he runs. That's how much he loves it. He's like, I hate all ovals, but this one is special. That is how much this track means to him, and so I just feel bad for him on that front. But as far as that goes, Jimmie Johnson needs to beat Chilton Kellett, but he's still so slow. And I understand this. He talked about this too, and I'm not holding it against him. It's just hard to watch, I'm saying. You know, I don't blame him. I understand it's going to take some time. I'm not saying it's like insulting. I'm not saying this is going to diminish his overall accomplishments or his career, how his career is looked at in the future. I don't think that's going to happen at all. It's just right now, fans, if you're going to go to an IndyCar race right now, do not expect Jimmie to be running that well. I mean, he was struggling, and he's talked about it. I think he talked about it himself. He said it's trying to figure out where the braking points are. You know, you're going from a big, heavy stock car that you have to brake maybe 400, 500 feet before you're used to, and you're trying to. Everybody else around you knows exactly when to brake, and you are still trying to figure out the best way to brake. I mean, I saw him in the morning warm-up. I think he blew the first turn at least 2 or 3 times, and I know he did it in qualifying, and that blew him. So he's really just struggling trying to find those braking zones, and that's really going to be the toughest thing for Johnson to learn, is adjust to that. He's got so much more braking power in these cars. He's got so much more downforce in these cars than he's used to, and hitting a fast lap is kind of based upon when you brake. And
so what would you? Okay, so if they're going in a hypothetical world, if this was race, this is road race 3. If he had raced at Indy 3 times, all right, and had put together 235 laps at Indy on the road course, where do you think he finishes in race 3? Knowing that he's had this many laps and this many races, do you think he finishes like 16th, 7th, 15th, somewhere around there? Is it just?
I mean, the Indy GP is all about the Indy GP usually the way trends go is we've had one race be threatened by rain, and we've had pretty much almost every other race be relatively caution-free to the end.
Yes.
So the IndyGP is always going to be based on strategy.
Yeah.
If Jimmie can execute on pit road, and his team executes on pit road, and Jimmie has enough laps under his belt, I would peg him probably around 11th or 12th. I think that would be a reasonable place for him to finish if he has more laps. I think his pace is just going to take some time. I mean, that first race, those first couple of races he's doing, when he gets to ovals next year, it's going to be second nature for him. And he said never say never. Grosjean has said never say never now. Both of them clearly want to run ovals next year. It's going to happen. Johnson has said he's on the record as saying the aero screen has made things safer. It makes him less apprehensive about running ovals. And he would be up to probably running. I would not be surprised to see both Johnson and Grosjean in the 500 next year. And probably, you probably won't see Kanaan there. You probably won't see Pietro unless he gets a second shot at it. I think those two will continue to run the full season in their respective cars. But the fact of the matter is, Jimmie is going to look so much better at Indianapolis next year than he's going to look this year. And I believe that. When he gets into an oval, he's going to have a whole season. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. He's going to have a whole season of this type of car under his belt, regardless of where he finishes, regardless of how slow he is. The moment he gets on that oval, it's going to feel natural for him because he's had a year to adjust to this car, and it's basically going back to the basics. An oval, which is something he's driven for the majority of his career.
Yeah, I think when we get to Laguna Seca or Long Beach, we get to those last 3 races of the year. Is he going to be finishing the top 10? No, but I think he could be battling for that, like a top 13. Because he's just, like you said, you got to learn the car, and he's not. And as I alluded to, he's not racing at the same track every week. He had to learn Barber. He had to learn St. Pete. He had to learn Indy. Well, those are 3 vastly different tracks, and Belle Isle is going to be.
He's going to have 2 chances at Belle Isle, so that could help. Maybe we'll see what happens in the second race. If maybe he learns a lot in the first race and is able to rebound. That'll be a good test, too.
And that will be a good one because, I'm not going to call St. Pete and Detroit Belle Isle sister tracks, but they're street courses. You're going to have,
one is clearly better than the other, and one has had way better races put on than the other.
we might see him improve. Where did he finish at St.? I know he had issues at St. Peter. He had a number of laps down. He finished 22nd, was 5 laps down. So maybe if he could walk away out of St. Pete with a top 18 finish, I call that a win.
Like I said, all you got to do is beat Chilton and Kellett, and I think that's a legitimate goal for him. And so far, I think he can do it. Kellett looked awful. He looked just as bad as John. Now, I'll say Juan Pablo Montoya struggled, but he'll bounce back in the oval, I think.
Yeah. This is all about learning the car again. This was
to get him adjusted to the new aero kit. He has not run with the universal aero kit. I think this race was... Juan probably treated this race much like Jimmie did as kind of just a giant-ass test session. And Juan's going to go in now starting tomorrow probably. Going to go out there and probably, top the speed charts. But, as far as that goes, just... Johnson should be able to beat Kellett if he tries. And it's not I'm sorry, Dalton. I appreciate what you do, the money you bring to AJ Foyt and all this stuff, but man, dude, I gotta ask you to speed up a little bit. I'm just asking, speed up a little bit. if Bourdais should not whip you as much as he's whipping you right now. I don't know, anyway. Anyway, so Rinus VeeKay ended up winning the race basically by undercutting Roman Grosjean, which was impressive. Undercut him, beat him out. Grosjean got hung up by Bourdais, and Rinus VeeKay got the win. This is the first Ed Carpenter Racing win at Indianapolis ever. Ed Carpenter has finally gotten a win as an owner at Indianapolis. I'm sure it'd be even sweeter if he won the whole thing later on this month. But that's also the first win for that team since Joseph Newgarden won at Iowa in 2016. So about 5 years, almost 5 year, about 4 3/4 of a year that since ECR last got their victory. But hey, that's the first Dutchman to win at Indianapolis too since R.A. Leindijk in 97.
Yep.
How about that? That's pretty cool, too.
It was cool to see. It's cool to see IndyCar this year following suit, much like NASCAR. 5 different winners in the first 5 races. 3 first-time winners. I mean, come on, this is awesome. I mean, you had let's go back to here. NASCAR started off with first-time winner, second career win. Phoenix was won by or Las Vegas. It was Las Vegas was second. Las Vegas won by Kyle Larson, so he's won a few before. But still,
Larson won Atlanta. Larson won Atlanta.
No, Larson won Vegas. Blaney won Atlanta.
At Vegas. He did win Vegas. Who won Atlanta? Yeah. Harvick?
Blaney.
No, Blaney. Shoot.
Blaney.
I am getting I'm sorry. Ignore me. I made a stupid fool of myself. I'm sorry.
You get. So, I love this season so far. It's not a Ganassi runaway like last year. I mean, it was totally different times, but still, it's been fun to watch this IndyCar season so far. Hopefully, it continues. We keep getting these. It's an awesome championship all the way down to the end when we get to Long Beach, and we have maybe an Atlanta NASCAR Cup Series 1992 style where we have 6 guys eligible with a legitimate shot. So, Rob, I'm ready to go into the Cup Series. How about you?
Yeah. Let's talk about the Cup Series here. So this one was actually really fun, and much like I talked about this last week. And I think I have to reiterate it again today. Is much like we saw in the Indianapolis GP how important strategy was. The undercut. Well, guess what happened again on Sunday? The undercut won. Bowman undercut Kyle Larson on pit road and used that track position to vault him to the win. And Bowman said it himself in the post-race interview. He's like, I didn't do anything. That was all my team. My team just had the best pit stop of all time.
Too. Huh? He said it on the radio, too.
Yeah, I mean, literally. And I agree with him 100%. I mean, if you got a team that can execute in such a clutch performance to pull off an undercut like that, I mean, dude, that is just... You got to do that. You got to do that in these races. And I mean, it's great. It's funny to watch Hendrick kind of compete against themselves. I feel like, you look at that from Rick Hendrick's point of view, and I feel like if you're Rick Hendrick, you're like, should this be a good thing or a bad thing? Does that speak worse to Larson's pit crew or better to Bowman's pit crew? Or should I just be happy that we had a top 4 sweep? I don't know what he's looking at on the Monday morning meeting, but I have to imagine something like that's rattling around in his head, being like, well, crap, how can we get Larson's crew smarter or faster or whatever on the undercut? But it was a good race. I actually enjoyed this Dover race for once. Sometimes Dover races for me could be a little bit of snooze fest, but this was actually really fun to watch. I actually enjoyed this. It looked like cars were slip sliding around a little bit. Small spoiler definitely helped that.
Oh gosh, yes, very much.
Oh my gosh, this is a good Dover race. I mean, from Dover standards,
this is
not just because he had good strategy in it, but you also had good racing, just like at Darlington.
Yeah, this I didn't watch the full race, but this to me again kind of goes back to last week. I think it's a win for the 750 package, low downforce, and this was one of those rare occasions where the Cup Series race has been able to hold a candle to the Xfinity Series race.
I'm not complaining about this. This is, as race fans, as NASCAR fans, even if we're looking at this from a journalistic point of view or whatever, I mean, we're opinionated on this show, so whatever, we can be fans if we want. My point is, from a race fan's perspective, if the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series are just as good as each other, this is best case scenario, because there was a period of time where that was just the most false statement you could make.
I tell you what, I really hope we can find some sort of balance. And, Rob, I think we're going to see 550 packages, be the thing, because that's going to lure more automobile makers, more OEMs. But the low downforce, man, and they had good tire wear. We had a good combination. It's taken out Atlanta and Darlington, where you start your car and the car vibrates, your tires wear. Okay, you go to Dover, where that's it's not super abrasive,
so it's going to be different.
It's going to be different, but it's not super worn out and abrasive. But we had tire wear. We saw cars slipping and sliding. Again, I watched some of the race, was able to watch some of it, and then I watched a lot on the highlights. But saw cars slipping and sliding, and cars chasing up. We saw that both races. That's what we need. That's what we need. And I again, good weekend for NASCAR. Also I kind of want to do shout out to Josh Berry, last minute decision. I don't know if you heard. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, I did hear about this. This was kind of crazy. There was a lot of crazy news that broke right around that same time.
Well, Spire originally asked Allgaier to drive the car, but he was unsure about what with his wife being pregnant, the due date being right here, and not sure what was going to happen. They were going to have to induce, I believe. Ultimately, it didn't end up happening. But then they called Josh Berry, and all right. I wish he didn't. I wish he did good though with 30th place finish. Heck, good job to him.
For the ugly stepsister of the Spire team, he did pretty good. In the ugly step car.
Yeah, very good there. But man, what do you think about Kyle Larson? Another dominating race, and he doesn't walk.
This is normal for Kyle Larson. To be honest with you, actually, at this point, it doesn't matter because he's okay. I'll be honest with you right here. As someone who's already got wins and is in the playoffs, at this point, Kyle Larson could lose every race on out. But if he wins the first two stages every time, the championship is his. You could basically just give it to him right then and there.
I'd rather be him than someone who's not getting these top finishes. I'd rather be in his position than I would be like, a Kevin Harvick even. And Kevin Harvick's not running terrible, but I'd rather be in his position. So, Rod, that kind of leads me to this next point here. I'll let you go first. What's your biggest surprises, good and bad, so far this season?
Yeah, this is a good question. My biggest surprise so far has been, first of all, is Trackhouse. I'm going to give it to Trackhouse because I cannot say that I expected him to already have a couple of top 10s under their belt. Like, I cannot believe that. I cannot believe how well they ran on Sunday. Pit strategy has been great out of them. I mean, just gambles that, I don't know if it's luck or skill, or maybe combination of both, but whatever, it's paid off for him. Suarez is having probably a career year in an upstart team, which is great for him. I love Suarez. I love seeing that dude have success. Because I feel like Suarez, again, and I've said it on the show a couple of times, Daniel Suarez, to me, solidified himself as possibly one of the greatest young talents in NASCAR today. At Michigan in 2016, when he beat Kyle Busch in a drag race, and he beat the best of the best in the best equipment head-to-head in basically a no-holds-barred race. That solidified to me that Suarez is way better than whatever his current Cup stats say. And the fact that he's gelling well with his team, and his team is gelling well with them, should be a big, red flag for the rest of the NASCAR garage. Because, let's be honest, the more data Trackhouse gets, the more scared I'm going to start getting them. They don't even have data for all the races, all the racetracks that they're going to, and yet they're already performing this well? I mean, Suarez has got to be at this point in playoff contention. He's got to be inching towards playoff contention at this point.
Yeah, they're probably getting some RCR data. Not to interrupt you, but they're probably getting some RCR data.
You get data from RCR, but they're not going to give you everything. You still have to go to these tracks and get the test and gather the data first in order to get everything. RCR is not just going to hand them, classified documents that could probably make or break their car or be the difference between 5/10 here, 4/10 here. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. And so the fact that Trackhouse is doing this well this soon is just so impressive to me. I am so happy to see it. It's so impressive. But I also have to talk about some of the bad, and the bad is going to fall specifically on Chip Ganassi Racing. Right now, I don't know what the heck they're doing to Kurt Busch and Ross Chastain, but neither of them are performing nearly where they're supposed to. And I really think a lot of it has to do with just both of their crew chiefs just not being that good. They haven't made very good calls. Chastain has gotten just screwed on some terrible calls. Kurt Busch has been involved in some terrible luck, but at the same time, Busch has not been running where I would expect him to run based on the last couple of years. They're not clicking. Whatever is going on, and I don't think it's the fault of either driver either. Chastain obviously is going to have the biggest learning curve, but I think Kurt is a good teammate to have. But if you don't have a crew chief that can make the right calls, no matter how good of a driver you are, it's not going to make a difference. Chip Ganassi really needs to go back to the drawing board here and make some kind of team changes, personnel changes here, because whatever they're doing right now is just not working. Whatever they're doing with their cars is just not working. Something has to change down there at Chip Ganassi Race, because his IndyCar team's going to be fine. You got some of the best drivers on your IndyCar team right now, in Dixon, in Palou, Johnson to whatever, Ericsson. We'll talk about Ericsson. By the way, great job from Marcus Ericsson. Finished, I think P10 or P9. I think he
finished 10th. Yeah, Dixon was 9th, I think, right behind him.
Good for Ericsson. I love Ericsson. I love seeing him do well. But anyway, that's my main point. The Chip Ganassi Racing, dude, they got to get their stuff together. Josh, biggest surprises for you, good and bad.
Trackhouse. Trackhouse is obviously. I think, looking at their stats here, they have a couple of nasty finishes of 36, 26, 32nd that have hurt them in the point stature. But Suarez is one spot behind Bubba Wallace. And if we would have said, hey, here's two scenarios, who do you think is going to be who? Or you think the 0 top 5s, 0 top 10s for Trackhouse, or 2311? I think we would have said Trackhouse, right? But yeah, Trackhouse is surprising.
Bubba probably could have had top 5s at Daytona and Talladega had it not been for accidents.
And I think he could have had a couple top 10s at a couple other races this year. But obviously, new team, something is clicking there.
Oh God, I'm talking about Chip Ganassi having some bad crew chiefs. God, Mike Wheeler needs to get his stuff together because he's making some terrible calls, man.
I'm going to go back to chemistry. I just think that it was a mistake not trying to get, and maybe they did try not to get Jerry Baxter over there with Bubba, because they had so much success last year. Had success in the Truck Series, but yeah, Trackhouse surprising to me. It's the biggest surprise to me. Good surprise, and you know what? You mentioned the playoff threat. If they can. They finished 9th and 11th in 2 of the last 3 races. If they can put races together like that through August, watch out. They might be a points bubble team here.
Yeah, there's no reason for them not to be a 15 or a 14 or a 16 seed at this point.
I would agree. But my bad is Stewart-Haas Racing. I mean, gosh, it's painful. They have a few top 10s from drivers not named Harvick, but they're not many. It has been utterly painful to watch how this team is just seemingly fall off a cliff. And maybe this is that cyclical thing we talked about, I talked about before. But yeah, they need to look at what's going on there. Briscoe's had an absolutely horrendous year. I feel like he'd be doing better if he had practice.
It goes back to that. Briscoe, rookies are going to struggle, especially this year. Last year, I think we saw a lot of the rookies struggle as well. I mean, Reddick looked really good, but I think Reddick just has more raw talent, and he has more of ability to adapt than most other drivers in his situation. But I think it all comes down to the fact that the cars race so much differently. I think Chase Briscoe probably would have better runs if the cars didn't race as differently as they do. And I understand that we're talking about them being similar, but they're still different. You know what I mean? The racing might be similar, but the packages are still different, and the overall style of driving is a bit different from Cup to Xfinity. So I think that, and like you said, lack of practice is really going along with it. I'm not going to fault Chase Briscoe that much. If next year he's struggling with practice qualifying and with a different car, then I'm probably going to start being a little bit worried for him here in the Cup Series. But right now, I'm not worried. I think this is a growing situation. Now, for Custer and for Almirola, I'm going to say Almirola is just unlucky. Custer just doesn't have a fast car. That's pretty much where I got to go with.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of took the words out of my mouth there. But
I'm so sorry. I know it was your thing. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
You're good. I just feel like, they got to find whatever this unlucky bug that has bitten them and swat it and kill it. Because I've been unimpressed with Harvick this year, and I know Harvick's got 10 top 10s, but he's not making noise. He's not making noise. He's not challenging for laps led. Again, he's had moments of brilliance, moments where he shined, but much like Bubba in that team, but they haven't been able to close. They haven't been able to stay up front. So this is a team very much struggling, and they need to find a way to reset as well. I don't know if personnel changes are necessarily in order, but this team is certainly wanting to find one. If they could go back to February and just do it all over again, I'm sure they would.
Yeah. See. Anyway, that's good. Good way to finish up things. Big time discussion. Now we're going to go into here to the weekend wrap up. We're going to tell you all about the drivers who won all of the smaller races. I'm going to talk a little bit about them because I did watch a few of these here and there. First and foremost here, the ARCA Menard Series East kicked off the Dover weekend. Ty Gibbs won that. So Ty Gibbs, again, continuing his complete domination of literally anything he drives in. Good for him. Super Formula had their next race here at Autopolis. Now this was fun. This was a wet race, rain race. Giuliano Alesi, yes, the guy that literally everybody in watching F2 and F3 for years probably said is never going to win a race. Sure enough, wins a race. He wins a race. So good for Giuliano. Let's not forget that his father sold a very rare Ferrari to keep his son's racing career alive. So good to see something's finally paid off here. What did you say, Josh?
I wanted to say one of my coworkers, when she has to come in early and see stuff, we were just talking one time, and I said, when I see this product here, it's a Lacey like vinegar and stuff, I always think of Jean Lacey, someone talking like from old commentary, and she says, guess what I think about every single time I see this. So,
Jean Lacey,
Christmas list, but short there. It's an awesome one.
Finished last in the 2012 Indy 500. Fun fact about John Alesi.
Yeah.
That's his last competitive race, but he said he'd be back in 2013, and he was not back. He retired. He decided to retire later that summer. IMSA had a race at Mid-Ohio this weekend. That was fun to watch a little bit. I caught a little bit of it on NBCSN. The Konica Minolta Acura with Felipe Albuquerque and Ricky Taylor was victorious overall. More sports car racing here. The European Le Mans Series had the 4 hours of the Red Bull Ring. Team WRT of Robert Kubica, Louis Delatrez, and Guy Yaffe won that race. And hey, American F3 driver Logan Sargent continues his impressive run of just being flat out impressive despite having no money. He qualified on pole. He put his team car on pole, and then his team went out there and they finished third. So great job there for Logan Sargent. That was a fun race, actually. You could go ahead and there's some highlights on YouTube. I do recommend it. It was a fun race. European Le Mans Series is always fun because of all the great names that you'll see in there that you might not normally watch in sports car racing. Just like, look at that, the winners: Robert Kubica, Louis Delatrez, and Guy Yaffe. That's not like the most decorated squad of all time, but that's a very solid race team. If you want a sports car squad, that's a very solid lineup. You know what I mean? That's what you want to put in there. The NASCAR Whelen Euro Series started its season. Josh, do you ever watch a little bit of the Whelen Euro Series early on Saturday mornings?
But I want to try and definitely watch a few more this year.
They are on Motorsport TV. They are live. You can watch them on Motorsport TV. I recommend it. They were raced at Valencia, the same Valencia that Formula E was at a couple of weeks ago. Of course, without any crazy, bizarre changes to the track. This was just the track as it is, as it's supposed to be run. Races 1 and 2 were swept by Loris Hezemans. He basically walked right in and beat everybody. He had a great, fun battle with Alon Day. If you are familiar with Alon Day, he ran in the Xfinity Series. He does race over there in the Whelen Euro Series.
Ran a Cup Series race at Sonoma, too.
Yes, he did. And so I'm going to butcher these. I wasn't here. I didn't watch these races, so I'm going to butcher this name here. USF 2000 races at Indianapolis GP, races 1 and 2. Again, these are the two races I didn't watch. I watched the Saturday races. So I didn't see any of the Friday races, and these were two of the Friday races. So the USF 2000 ran on Friday. I don't know how to pronounce this, Josh. I'm going to need some help. Yuven Sundaramurthy. Is that right? Do you think that's right?
I'm going to call that a win.
Usually I'm pretty good at pronouncing names, but that one
Isn't I should have maybe helped you out there.
Okay.
I believe that is Russian. So if that helps you out at all.
Meanwhile, we have other Russians racing in Formula 2 named Robert Schwartzman. A simple name.
It is an American name.
It's an American? Really?
He's an American nationality.
Asian American, okay.
Okay, never mind. I was thinking of a different driver. My bad. I apologize.
I was going to say, there's Russian drivers out there that have easier to pronounce names than that. Not to make fun of this guy for his name. I mean, it's a good name. I mean, it's memorable. You'll remember it. Just like the racer known only as Dragon. Never forget him. Anyway, USF 2000 at Indianapolis, the race 3. This was a Saturday race, the morning race. That was actually the race that I actually did get to see. That was fun. Kiko Porto was the winner of that. That was actually a very fun race. Came down to the wire there. Indy Pro 2000 at Indianapolis at the Indianapolis GP. The race 1 was won by Christian Rasmussen. Race 2, Artem Petrov, and then race 3 was again run by Christian Rasmussen. So Rasmussen continuing his dominance of that series. And then Indy Lights had their races here. Linus Lundqvist won race 1, and then race 2. Race 2. Did you see race 2 on Peacock, Josh? You got to watch this. This was the best. We lost the Freedom 100 this year, and it's still a shame. Roger Penske, this is still the worst decision you've ever made. Don't call you out on it every single time. The Freedom 100 was the main reason most people went to Carb Day. It made Carb Day more fun to go to. It was a great race. It was a great opportunity for a bunch of young drivers to showcase their abilities and have a chance to race on the big oval at IMS in a very, very great, exciting race. But you know what the Indy Lights did over the weekend? They said, you know what, you could take away our Freedom 100. You could take away the race that we all wanted to win more than anything else in our junior Formula careers, but you cannot take away the fact that Indy Lights puts on the best darn racing on the planet, because you had a side-by-side, nose-to-nose, nail-biter finish in race 2 that was quite honestly the most incredible race I have seen on the road course in my entire life. This was, if you have Peacock, I please recommend you go watch the Indy Lights Race 2 from IMS. I watched this race. I have some great footage of it in 4K, 60 frames per second from my iPhone 11 Pro. We're not sponsored by anything. We should be, right? We talked about this, but we'll get all to that later. But man, let me tell you something. This was a great race. Absolutely fantastically fun race to watch David Malukas winning the race by I think just a few feet, maybe a foot and a half, I think he won it by. I mean, you cannot keep these Indy Lights cars from producing good racing at Indianapolis. So Roger Penske, if you're listening, not that you are, because I know you're not, but if you are, we're asking you nicely, bring the Freedom 100 back, because we miss it. We miss it, and that race on Saturday showed that Indy Lights, doesn't matter how many cars are in the field, Indy Lights will put on a good show no matter what. And that was true. Finally here, Stock Car Brazil was in Interlagos. Now, race 1 was dominated by Gabriel Casagrande. Now, that was after the long straightaway after the first few S's. But the second race, actually, guess who won the second race, Josh? It's none other than driver. He was a replacement driver who walked right in, and I think he got this virtue because the way Stock, but I was not really paying attention to it, and I should have. I was paying more attention to the NASCAR race and I was watching this, so I kind of missed a little bit of this. But between races, so cool to see Antonio Felix da Costa essentially as a replacement driver. So Josh, let's go ahead here, and that's the weekend wrap up for today. So let's go ahead here and jump into the outstanding performance of the week. Josh, I've got to ask you here, who is your outstanding performance from this weekend?
Kind of, you mentioned their team. I'm going to go with Ross Chastain. It goes off the beating path here, maybe, of what I could have chose. But
to preface, because of this, since you're picking Chastain, I want to say that you're picking him with the stats that you've included here. I want to say that's mostly all driver. Pit crew hasn't been helping him at all.
Yeah, so he's got 6 straight top 17 finishes. I know it's top 17. And he's finished in the top 17, 7 of the last 8. And he got off to a rough start. And I think a lot of people last year, when they said, hey, Ross Chastain's going to be in this 42 car next year, a lot of people said, hey, he's going to need to perform well out the get-go. And if he's going to show, hey, I belong here. I agree. I think he's a talented race car driver. The team is struggling as a whole. I am surprised to see Kurt Busch struggle as much as he is. Definitely some... I do think they're missing some things in the car, and then you mentioned the pit road stuff, but this right here is what's going to dig you out of a points hole, where he's at. I'm pulling up. I have failed once again to bring up the points. So driver's points here, I believe he's 25th. Am I right? He's 23rd. So he's right behind Suarez and Bubba Wallace in points. And he's been, clawing his way up. But if he can put together strings of finishes like this through the summer and towards the playoffs, will he point his way into this playoffs? That's to be seen. It might be difficult. It's probably going to be a little difficult to do that compared to like a Suarez, who's going to be, if he can continue to finish top 12s, that's the few more points goes a long way. But he could put himself in position to finish in the top 20 in points, which I feel like would be a win at this point. And where you look at Kurt Busch, he's 18th in points. I don't think that's too far off for a guy who is a rookie season in good equipment. Or is it better equipment? Could it be because equipment be better? Certainly could be. So that's mine. It's kind of more of an overarching over the past few weeks, outstanding performance. He's turned things around as a driver, and if the teams and everything could click, I think the Chevrolets are doing really well. I think the RCR cars in the RCR camp have done very well, and we obviously are seeing what the Hendrick cars are doing, right? Chip Ganassi's got a Hendrick Motorsports alliance. They use Hendrick engines. So, yeah, I would say, again, my outstanding performance was Ross Chastain trying to turn this season around, even if he's just putting out consistent finishes.
Well, I can't argue with that. Even, I have my criticisms about his pit crew, but I'm not going to argue with you saying his performances have all been driver, because I think they have been. So I'm going to agree with that. My outstanding performance is actually, I feel like this is a cop-out, but it's really not. I have to give it to Roman Grosjean. Grosjean, man,
outstanding performance.
Pole in his first trip to Indianapolis. That's got to feel special, especially considering the fact this is the only race in Indianapolis he's going to run this year. That's got to feel special. The picture by IndyStar's Grace Holler of him holding his second place trophy with his burnt hand pretty much solidified this pick for me, because I think there's nobody who probably deserves that moment in the spotlight more than him. I mean, it's great that Rinus VeeKay won. I feel like we're all forgetting that with talking about well, yeah, he'll run later this season in the Brickyard weekend, but this is his first shot at Indy. This is his first chance in Indy, and this probably is... Okay, so it's not his only. Okay, fine. Okay, I shouldn't have said his only. Sorry. Point is, it's his first chance at Indy, and he goes out, puts it on the pole, finishes second, and really, quite honestly, he did everything perfect from a race standpoint, from a driver's standpoint. I don't think Roman Grosjean made a single mistake. It just all came down to pit crew, and his got beat by VK's. What are you going to do? It's not much he could have done. I mean... And you get held up by a lap car, kind of prevents you from chasing down the leader. Yeah, that sucks. But at the end of the day, Grosjean, man, from where he was a couple of months ago,
right,
to essentially a podium at Indianapolis, I can't think of anyone else who's more deserving. Okay, moving on here, second to last segment of the show, Upshift, Downshift. If you're new here, again, thank you for listening this far. This was one of our favorite segments of the show. Upshift, that means you agree. We agree with the hypothetical question and or statement that's going to be presented. And then if we don't agree with said hypothetical question and or statement, we will just downshift. Now, if we don't care, because sometimes we write these questions and we just don't care. Or Josh might not care, or I might not care, or whatever. We put it into neutral. Or sometimes we can break the the entire gearbox by being so passionate about our opinion.
I want to go back and see how many times we've gone into neutral and see which way we've shifted. I want to go back and count those. I don't think I will, but I'm intrigued to.
You can listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor and through Spotify, but you can also listen to all of Season 3's podcasts on YouTube. on our YouTube channel. Just go ahead and search for Rob and Roller on YouTube. You'll find it. But that's really what's going to be fun. I had to plug the YouTube channel in because if you're not listening on YouTube, that's okay, but you can. So the first question of our upshift downshift segment today is CBS? So no, not is. I'm going to rephrase the question. The first upshift downshift question for today: CBS is the best choice to succeed NBC as the television broadcaster of the IndyCar series. Do you upshift or downshift this, Josh?
Downshift. Here's why. Their sports network is not where it needs to be, numbers-wise. And CBS has games in the middle of, Sundays coming, when they get to the fall. So unless IndyCar is going to end before Labor Day, which none of us want to see, and we know it's not going to begin any sooner than it is because it doesn't want to go up against the NFL and then NASCAR in its first few weeks, right? It's a bad choice. Honestly, I think their best choice is to remain with NBC, but if NBC doesn't want to have anything to do with them, then they can't, right? See, I'm going with ESPN. I think ESPN would be the best choice for them. I think ESPN's got the platform there. I think ESPN, if they want to redevelop their motorsports coverage, which I think they've done a great job doing what they're doing with Formula One, I think things would certainly be different, though, if they were actually the primary broadcaster. But CBS is not the answer for IndyCar, especially long term, a full season. CBS might work in NASCAR in the next one with, it's the same reason that Fox works in the first half because they don't have football to go up against, right? That's why NBC takes the second half because they have Sunday Night Football and you don't have to worry about that with NASCAR. So yeah, I downshift. Downshift this one. It's an easy one.
Contrary to what I said earlier, just about Alan Bestwick and stuff, based upon their Formula E coverage, based upon their coverage of other motorsports. I'm not saying that CBS Sports Network doesn't have a lot of motorsports on it. It does. It's got a lot of good stuff on it. Problem is, almost all of it's usually tape delayed. Now, sometimes they'll air live stuff. Usually they'll air like Trans Am stuff live, usually sometimes. But most of it's tape delayed. It's really lame, and I hate tape delayed stuff. I don't want to watch tape delayed stuff.
Yeah, no one wants to watch tape delayed.
So I'm not saying that I think that they would tape delayed. I assume that IndyCar would force them to broadcast everything live regardless, just like they do with NBC. But, first of all, NBC, man, I had a worry about them because they literally inherited IndyCar. When they re-upped and got the full season, I was personally surprised because I didn't think they would do that. I really did not think that they would end up doing that, but they did. And that's their prerogative, and they've done their best to pimp it out and publicize it as much as they can. But at the end of the day, they're consolidating. They are giving up the NHL. And if you follow sports media, you know that ESPN and Turner Sports are going to have the NHL next year. What the heck? How did this happen? We went from NBC having pretty much
championship season all themselves.
Yeah. And now they're backing out of hockey. So now that makes you wonder, well, if they're backing out of hockey and they're closing down NBCSN, what's the future of NBC Sports? It's probably not going to include NASCAR for very much longer, and it's probably not going to include IMSA or IndyCar either. If it includes NASCAR will have a good home on USA and NBC. But I don't see them putting IndyCar and IMSA on USA or Big NBC for that much longer. They might try and keep the 500 because I know that's what they wanted to do, but ABC tried to do that. ABC or ESPN for a long time, when they were talking about that, they really wanted to have the 500. The main reason they had the broadcast rights as they did is because ESPN still likes to have the 500. And in fact, something that you'll know is if you go to ESPN Plus, if you're a subscriber to ESPN Plus, they still do have all of the ESPN Classic broadcasts of old 500s, and then broadcasts of all of the 500s that they have the rights to, so up until 2018. And obviously, those aren't ESPN cuts. Those are the full ones. Obviously, some parts are edited, but they're still usually the full races. But then they do have the old ESPN Classic stuff from they used to play a lot on ESPN Classic during the month of May, which I always left on. Dude, getting home from school in May and just popping on ESPN Classic back in the day, just watching those old 500s every hour on the hour, that was best stuff ever. It didn't matter. My thing about it is I am downshifting as well. I think that the best thing that IndyCar can do is get themselves back to ESPN. And I know everybody's always... I've said this. I've been saying this. Everybody criticizes me. They say, oh, ABC's bad. It's always bad coverage. Well, you know what, guys? I don't care what you think. I never thought ABC was all that bad. I don't care how many commercials they had. The fact of the matter is these guys employed Paul Page for as long as they did, and he was the best racing commentator in the entire world. Then they tried Todd Harris. That was a failure. Okay, I'll give him that. That sucked. That was awful. Marty Reed was not bad covering IndyCar. Anybody who says Marty Reed was bad covering IndyCar is just a flat liar. Yes, he was not the greatest covering NASCAR, but then again, keep in mind, ESPN literally had him covering every single motorsport back in the day except for NHRA, which, ironically, they shoved Paul Page on, which was weird. Anyway, going back, and then they had Alan Bestwick. Alan Bestwick was the perfect voice of the 500, and I'm really disappointed that he's not the voice of the 500 anymore. That's why I'm so happy that he's on the PA at Indianapolis right now. ESPN is the best place. You want to know why? They got ESPN Plus now. You want to know what I want? I appreciate Peacock for going all out. NBC going all out on Peacock with IndyCar practice and testing and Indy Lights coverage. That's all good and fine. That's all great. But let me just say, dude, if it's on ESPN Plus, you get so much more exposure. Not just for IndyCar, but for Indy Lights. So much more exposure. Right. So many people have the Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus bundle. So many people are going to watch that. You are going to open up your... I mean, how many people are watching F2 and F3 now? I am. You want to know what I was able to do? When was I able to watch F2 and F3 with NBC? I wasn't. Or if I was, it was tape delayed later that night, and even then it got preempted usually because NASCAR would run overtime or something. This was literally what would happen. So I'm saying downshift, ESPN is the best way to go. I want ESPN to get back IndyCar series rights. I'm sorry, Josh, you had your finger up this whole time. Please say what you want to say.
I wanted to say that you can bet with Roger Penske at the helm, he's going to get the best deal possible, and he's going to go to where they're going to give him the best deal possible. And it doesn't feel like that's NBC, and this could be a little bit of a mixture of that as well. I promise you the ESPN coverage will be improved with him at the helm.
Truthfully, I think
if you feel like it was bad, if you feel like it was bad,
wanted to split the coverage, I think that would be great. If they split the coverage like they did for the longest time, I think that's fine. It just depends who gets the 500 rights. Do you give it? Does NBC keep it, or do you give it to ABC again? I think, in my personal opinion, and I understand I'm a traditionalist, so people probably hate this. I think the 500 has to be on ABC because it was always on ABC. It was on the ABC affiliate here in Indianapolis for the first time for crying out loud. It's on WRTV. Well, I don't think it was an ABC affiliate back then, but point is, it's an ABC affiliate now, so I associate it with that. But the thing is, it should just be on ABC. It's always been on ABC. ABC's Wide World of Sports. Jim McKay. 500 is rooted in tradition. You got to be the traditionalist. I'm sorry. I know people hate that. Everybody hates me saying, "Oh, I want to go with tradition." It's like, "Oh, well, that's toxic and stuff." Well, no, it's not. I think it's just there's certain things that should be there's certain situations where tradition should be adhered to, and this is one of them.
I agree. I agree. All
right, next question. After 5 races, Colton Herta is 10th in IndyCar points and is the highest Andretti Autosport driver. Do you upshift or downshift that 2 or less Andretti Autosport drivers will finish inside the top 10 in points? Josh.
Upshift. I think they're kind of for the NASCAR fans out there, I think they're kind of the Stewart Haas of the big powerhouse teams at the moment. They're struggling for whatever reason. They need to be in a position where Rossi, Herta, Hinchcliffe, and Hunter Ray are all battling for top 12 positions in the race, and they're not doing that. I would say if they have 2 guys there, it's probably going to be Rossi and Herta. But at this point, I think it's just going to be Herta in the top 10 by season's end. I hate to say that because I think Rossi is one of those guys who should serve a pivotal role in the next, at least handful of years, not more, in IndyCar. But for whatever reason, 2020, 2021, Andrade Autosport is not hitting their marks. So I'm going to, well, the question was, is less dog going to upshift? Yeah, it's going to be 2 or less.
I've got to say, yeah, I would be surprised if any of them at this rate. I mean, the way that they're performing, Rossi has just been terrible. Pit crews have just been slow. Overall pace has just not been there. Hinchcliffe looks like a shell of his former self. Hinchcliffe looks
to watch.
Just it. Oh my God. Rossi looks like a shell of his former self. Hurdle has flashes here and there, but I think he's being held back by his crew in the car. Hunter Ray is a series champion and an Indy 500 champion, and he looks like he's barely either of those things. He looks like he's an also-ran most of the time. Something is up down there at Andretti Autosport, because their current crop should, in theory, be the best crop of drivers they've had since probably the mid-2000s, and for whatever reason, they can't get anything going. It just looks like a shell of their former self. Every driver doesn't look good. Herta, I feel, is being held back. I'd be surprised if any of them finish in the top 10. How about this here? Next question here. The current 4 drivers at Hendrick Motorsports, Alex Bowman, William Byron, Chase Elliott, and Kyle Larson, hold the highest combined 4-car potential HMS has ever put out on the racetrack. Do you upshift or downshift, Josh?
Shift. I think this is the strongest lineup they've ever had with active current potential across all 4 cars. I think it's inevitable Chase Elliott is going to win a race this year. Yes, Hendrick Motorsports in the past have put all 4 cars in victory lane. I believe the first time was in 2003. Did Terry Labonte win in 2003?
Yes, he won the Southern 500 that year.
That's right, he did. So, yeah, and Nemechek won in the 25. Gordon and Johnson won that year, and there's been years since where all 4 cars have visited victory lane. But there has always been 1 or 2 weak links in that chain. In this year, I don't think there's a weak one amongst them. I think the way Bowman is running, I think is maybe somewhat the biggest surprise. I think I knew that Kyle Larson was eventually going to find his stride, and what he's done here is maybe surprising at this point in the season. But Bowman with 2 wins, he's ran well. Not as consistent as Byron or Larson. And again, I think it's just a matter of time for Chase finds victory lane. This is the strongest lineup Hendrick Motorsports has had with combined potential at the current moment. Yes, so I upshift. Yeah, this is a great year for them.
It's hard for me not to upshift as well. I mean, I really think that we're looking at a situation where, since all 4 cars are in contention to win every single week, it's not a question of if, but when. You know what I mean? When are all 4 cars going to win? And
it come this weekend at Coda.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Chase Elliott's road course experience. Holy cow, I'd be afraid of that. Whole field should be afraid of the 9, especially with practice and qualifying. The 9 could start first. He could sit on the pole and just start hot lapping, pull out the hugest gap, have a good pit stop, undercut everybody, and just run his own race, man. Well, I'm assuming there'll be cautions because it's NASCAR and track limits doesn't exist. And anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm just excited. When I think about Coda, I'm just so curious to see what portions of the course are drivers going to cut or just use all of. Like, how much runoff are they going to use? Are they going to just use all the runoff like IndyCar did, or what are they going to do? But anyway, I'm not going to go as far as saying that all 4 of them are going to be in the championship 4 when you get to Phoenix. It's a strong possibility, but it's still highly unlikely.
That's highly unlikely, but yeah, they're running like it could be.
Yeah, they're running. If they keep running like they ran at Dover, it's going to be hard to count them off. But yeah, I think this is one of the best 4-car squads I think I've seen in NASCAR in a long time. So I've got to. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, since Roush was in, when Roush had all 5 cars, I think he put all 5 of them in victory lane.
All 5 and 05.
Yeah. Edwards, Harvick. No, not Harvick. Edwards, Busch, Kenseth, Martin, and Biffle. Yeah, that's right. Because Biffle almost won the championship that year.
Yeah.
Man, Stewart just had that incredible summer, and Biffle couldn't keep up with that summer streak Stewart went on. Next question here, and final question of the upshift downshift question. Do you upshift or downshift that a second race at the Red Bull Ring was chosen to replace the Turkish Grand Prix?
So, from a fan standpoint, I downshift. But from a logistical standpoint, yeah, it probably was the best. I would maybe have liked to see a track that didn't host 2 races last year get it. And one that you could maybe have a second layout at. I mean, the only other layout Red Bull Ring has isn't very good in itself. It's far shorter. So I would much rather see Germany, get a race whether that was at Nürburgring or not. I don't know. I don't know. Good for them. At least they're getting another race in, and they don't have to worry about things logistically. This is going to work out for them. But as a fan standpoint, I downshift. Logistically, I upshift. So I'm
going to have to echo you. On that one. I'm going to have to echo you on that. I would have loved to have seen them go to a different venue, but at the end of the day, if the venue that you are best able to go to is Austria puts on good races. I mean, they did 2 races last year that were really, really good, really, really fun. I have no reason to say that it's a bad thing they host 2 races. If anything, if Formula One's going to go to 2 races in one season, I'd hope it's Austria, because at the very least, Austria is always going to produce some good racing. You're going to get some good fun racing. It's like a short road course, but it's fast, but it has tight corners, but it's technical. It's just the perfect course. I love the final sector. I love the middle sector as well. Screw it. I love all 3 sectors. I don't even care. I just love driving this thing in Formula One games. It's the most fun thing I've ever done. I love this course.
I just look at France. I'm like, that thing's 15,000 courses. You couldn't have got another one out of it. Go to France twice. I mean,
yeah, I would actually. That would actually be interesting to see them do that. Actually, or someone mentioned flippantly. I preface this flippantly. Of what if you went backwards around Spa and took Eau Rouge coming? Yeah, exactly. Your eyes got huge. Yeah, just imagine that. Yeah,
worry me. I mean, I think that might be a hazard to hell.
Because someone was. They were talking. I was reading a Reddit post. They were talking about. I guess at the time they were floating around. This was last year when they were trying to fill in the schedule and figure out what to do.
Yeah,
they were talking about potentially running Silverstone backwards.
See, that one would be cool.
But they said they would have to make too many changes to the track for it to be economically feasible. So they scrapped it and they shelved it. But they were talking about it, and that's where someone brought up what if you went to Spa but backwards?
Now, if as a driver, I would be scared. I would not. I would not
want Brown almost every lap, right?
Yeah, no way.
No, I told you I was being flippant, but it's something I want. Maybe someone should try it in iRacing. Go backwards.
There's got to be a way here. I'm gonna look up something real quick here.
That's fine. Go ahead and look it up, because I'm gonna move on to my segment, because we're actually making good time today. Yeah. I'm actually very happy about this. We're making good time. We're going to get you guys out and finished here with this episode here pretty early. So we're going into my featured segment. So as is tradition, every May I take over the featured segment, and I talk about something very close to my heart, that's very near and dear, close to my heart, is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indianapolis 500. So with it being May, I wanted to talk about that subject. But I've talked a lot about the Indianapolis 500 during these segments. I focus all about the 500. It's all about the 500. Well, I talked about earlier in this show just how much I miss the 100, the Freedom 100.
Yep, we all do.
So, and I'm disappointed that Penske thinks that back-to-back races for the lights in Belle Isle is better than having the Freedom 100, when I think everybody in the garage and every driver can disagree with them wholeheartedly on that. You want to win at Indianapolis, no matter what car it's in, and no matter what circuit it is, and no matter what race it is, you want to win at Indy. These drivers deserve an opportunity to race on the Indianapolis Oval. Now, Tony George believed that in 2003 when or actually more in 2002 when he launched the Xfinity Pro Series and then brought the Xfinity Pro Series to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in 2003. Tony George believed in that he believed, and it has been a staple of Carb Day ever since. Probably one of the greatest reasons to go to Carb Day outside of just the fact that it's Carb Day, concerts and everything. But this year is different. There's no concerts at Carb Day because of COVID. And now there's no Freedom 100. So what's the point of Carb Day, I ask you? Well, there's no point. You just show up at 11 o'clock, watch an hour's worth of practice, and go home. If you're interested in the pit stop competition, you can feel free to watch that. But afterwards, there's no point to doing anything. You're better off just killing time until the night before, or the Carb Night Classic starts down the street at Lucas Oil Raceway. You're better off just killing time. In fact, depending on where you live, good luck killing that much time, because it's probably going to be several hours after the red flag falls on practice that you're gonna be sitting there. It's just gonna be boring. Penske, you screwed up. You just really didn't care about the fans on this one. But anyway, that's not the point. The point today is to highlight the top 5 of something. And I'm doing a top 5 list because David Letterman has a top 10 list, and that's not fair. I don't want to steal things from him. I'm doing the top 5 best Freedom 100 winners. This is a pretty easy list, but it's also an interesting one because I'm going to rank the best Freedom 100 winners. Now, the Freedom 100 was run consecutively every year from 2003 to 2019. And it has not been run the last 2 years, unfortunately. Now, guess what? Josh, I want to ask you this question, and I want to also ask all of our viewers. Who is the only driver to have won multiple Freedom 100s? Don't look at the answer.
I'm not looking. That I cannot tell you. I don't. Herta?
No. Colton Herta
Okay.
did not. Colton Herta only ran 2, I believe, 2 Freedom 100s, and he only won one of them.
Okay, well, you're going to have to tell me.
So he's number 5 on this list, and I'll explain why he's number 5 on this list. But the only driver to win multiple Freedom 100s was Wade Cunningham. Wade Cunningham is on this list not because of his stats and anything outside of Indy Lights. He's on this list as the only multi-time winner of the Freedom 100, and, to be honest with you, he's probably one of the greatest Indy Lights drivers of all time. If there's nothing you remember Wade Cunningham for, it should be his time in the Indy Lights series in the late 2000s. There was a period of time where nobody could beat Wade Cunningham at Indy Lights, nor could anybody beat Wade Cunningham at this track. Wade Cunningham owned Indianapolis during the late 2000s in the Freedom 100. He owned this race because, again, he's the only driver to win this race 3 times. No one's won it twice. He's got 3. So he's basically his own Bobby Unser of the Freedom 100. You know what I mean? So with 4 full-time seasons under his belt in Indy Lights, he was, again, consistently one of the best drivers in his field during his time in that junior category. He won the championship in 2005 as a series rookie. Now, surprisingly, back then, it didn't actually vault him to an IndyCar ride like you'd think. It didn't. He didn't have the money. Whatever. But he then followed it up by winning the 2006 Freedom 100. Actually, fun fact about that, I believe I was there. Was I there? No, I don't think I was there. Never mind, I wasn't there. I thought I was. 2006 was a fun time, but I don't think I was there. Anyway, Cunningham then ran the full 2000. So he ran 2007, 2009. He ran partial seasons with multiple different teams, but then he came back in 2009, running a full season with Sam Schmidt, and won his second Freedom 100 en route to a 4th place finish in the championship. He would then enter only 2 races in 2010. Because I think by this point he was running a few IndyCar races, or he had deals to run a couple IndyCar races. And he won the Freedom 100, which is his first start that year. He just hopped in a car for Sam Schmidt, went out and won it. And then he finished 3rd at Homestead later that year. So Cunningham's pro career might not have been anything spectacular, but he is, statistically, the most dominant driver the Freedom 100 has ever seen. So if you're going to associate anybody with the Freedom 100, you pretty much have to associate it with Wade Cunningham. He's somebody that he will forever live in IMS lore, as of right now, as being the winningest driver the Freedom 100 has ever seen. So number 4 on this list next is going to be the guy who we talked about. Coulda, shoulda, woulda probably won yesterday or Saturday's Grand Prix had it not been for an issue on pit road, and that's Jack Harvey. Now, Jack Harvey came right into the Indy Light Series in 2005. And let's be honest. There's 2015, excuse me, not 2005. Let's be honest. He took it by storm. He took it by storm. I mean, this guy was one of the best in the Indy Lights in 2015. And I remember because I covered that race. It was the first race I covered. Watching Harvey just go out there and win that Freedom 100, man, you could tell he was destined for something great. And he definitely was, because Mike Shank has seen his capabilities pretty much since he's got been at IndyCar. He's believed in Jack Harvey, and it's proven. It's shown. Harvey's career, you look at what he's done at Indianapolis. I mean, Indianapolis is statistically, road course or oval, it doesn't matter. It's statistically one of Harvey's better racetracks. He runs very well at this track, and it's no doubt that, of course, he was going to win a Freedom 100 if he got the chance. When you're that good at this racetrack, or you're just destined to be good at Indianapolis, and Jack Harvey is one of those. There's people out there that are just like that, and Harvey, I think, is one of those. And I don't think his 2015 win was any fluke. He came right out there and he won that. And on this list, I put him on here because he's one of the few Indy Lights drivers that have really gone on, one of the few winners in this series to have really gone on to have a relative moderate level of success in IndyCar. I mean, he's got podiums, he's got high points finishes, even though he hasn't run a full season, he's still done very well for himself in his career. He runs very well. He's done very well for himself in his career. So that's why Jack Harvey is on this list at number 4. Clocking in here at number 3 is the inaugural winner of the Freedom 100 from 2003, and that's Ed Carpenter. Now, Carpenter won the inaugural Freedom 100 in 2003 and has set his sights on another Indianapolis win ever since. Carpenter's stats in Indianapolis speak for themselves, with 5 top 2 starts since 2013. That's 3 poles, and then I believe 2 second place starts. So Carpenter is fast at this track. He knows his way around. He knows how to set up his car for Indianapolis. And I think a win's coming for him at some point. If he doesn't throw in the towel here in the next couple of years, and he gets lucky and he has a fast car again, I think it's coming. It's coming. So a second place finish in 2018, though, has so far been Ed's best result at the Indianapolis 500. Nevertheless, Carpenter was one of the standouts of the original Xfinity Pro Series, and he has had a decent amount of success in IndyCar as a driver and an owner. Carpenter had a career renaissance in the mid-2010s, where he was a threat to win nearly every single oval race. When it comes to oval aces, Carpenter will always be on the list, and he'll always be a favorite, I think, to win at Indianapolis. If you don't at least put a little bit of money on Ed Carpenter to win the race, I think you're leaving a lot on the table. Carpenter is on this list at number 3. Clocking in here at number 2 is the 2018 winner, and that's Colton Herta. Colton Herta, I think, should be on this list, and he deserves to be on this list, but he's at number 2. We'll get to number 1 here in a little bit. But Colton Herta has made a splash in IndyCar ever since his full-time debut in 2019. Already with 4 wins in just 2.5 seasons, Herta's win in the Freedom 100 was merely foreshadowing his greatness. We've talked about it on the show, how there are many in the IndyCar paddock who believe that he deserves a shot at F1. Now, hypothetically, if that ever happened, he'd be the first Freedom 100 winner on the F1 grid. Obviously not the first Formula 1 winner, obviously not the first Indianapolis 500 winner to be on that list. Sorry, I have a weird Freudian slip sometimes. Just bear with me on that. He'd be the first Freedom 100 winner to ever race in Formula 1, which is crazy to think about, because you'd think at some point, someone from F3 or F2 would have, dipped their toes in racing over here and made a run at the Freedom 100 and then gone on to F1 or something, but no, it's never happened. It's never happened. Even with Carlin putting fielding cars in Indy Lights again, it's never happened. So Colton Herta is on this list because, again, Herta is really good at Indy, and he's really good in general. He's the series champion in Indy Lights as well, and he's probably on his way, if Andretti's able to improve in a little bit, probably on his way to a series championship, if not even a 500 victory at some point. Herta's got a lot of time left in his career to make these things happen, but he's at number 2 because of how young he is and because of how much potential he's got, and he does actually have a Freedom 100 victory. So good for Colton Herta, and that's why Colton Herta is going to make this list. Now, moving on to number 1, this should be a no-brainer because if you think about the Indy Lights series and you think about 2011, you probably think about this guy, the guy who had a mediocre run in Formula 3 the previous year, and everybody pretty much thought that, this guy's career is not going to go very far. No. Joseph Newgarden. This is very easy to pick because Newgarden has been establishing himself as the face of IndyCar ever since his rookie year in the IndyCar series in 2012. But that year prior in 2011 was one of the most dominant seasons of Indy Lights competition, probably by any series champion. Well, he had a lot of wins. Herta's had a lot of wins. Cunningham even had a lot of wins in his dominating season. So it's tough to match them. But Newgarden definitely has been one of the better Indy Lights drivers of the past since its current iteration in 2002, I should say. And he won 4 races in 2011 en route to a series championship that year. So not only is he a series champion, but then he's a Freedom 100 winner, and then he takes that scholarship money and he moves up to a small team in Sarah Fisher Racing. He gives Sarah Fisher some of the best runs that car's ever had, basically propels that team into its inevitable partnership with Ed Carpenter Racing. He gets a run with Ed Carpenter, and then he goes on to bigger and better things with Penske. He's now a 2-time series champion with 18 career wins, which is, I believe, the most wins of anybody in IndyCar on this list. So Newgarden has to statistically be the best on this list, but the Freedom 100 that he won was no fluke either, because he just had an incredible season that year, and nobody was going to stop Newgarden. Everybody knew Newgarden was the next big thing, and back then, and even watching that race from back in 2011, I could tell you, Newgarden was destined for great things. So I got to tell you, it was really fun compiling this list. It's great to take a look back at Freedom 100 history, because it's been a staple of the month of May pretty much since I've been around. I mean, since I've been really conscious as an IndyCar fan. So 2003, I mean, man, this thing has been around for most of my childhood and most of my young adult and even some of my current adult life. So it's really sad to see it not there. It's always been a fun thing to do and watch on Carb Day, and it's always been a great opportunity for Indianapolis 500 fans to get their first look at the next generation of stars. I mean, everyone on this list has made an Indianapolis 500 start, and while none of them have won the race yet, I think most people agree it's inevitable that Newgarden, Herta, and Carpenter are gonna get there, and if they don't, it'll be more of a surprise than anything.
Yeah.
So I have really got to say it was a lot of fun to compile this list. I wish the Freedom 100 would come back. Go watch some Freedom 100s on YouTube. I think most, if not all of them, are on YouTube, and I recommend them, because even the races where they had 11 cars or less show up, they still put on good races. The drafting was crazy. You just have to appreciate the Freedom 100 for what it was, and I miss it. But I'm glad to highlight it this show.
Wanted to share here real quick. Colton Herta's victory. Mm-hmm. That he had 8 cars in it, but had 20 lead changes.
Yeah,
that is the lowest car count and the highest lead change. There are some exciting. Of course, we'd love to see the numbers. Like, I'm sorry, I'm totally plugging here. But in 2008, there were 27 cars. That was the most the race ever had. We'd love to see 27 cars racing and have 20 lead changes. But I mean, there are some exciting races, and I think the one I will never, ever, ever, ever forget is when Dempsey won.
Yeah,
in 13.
You know, and I was there. My dad had Pagoda Suite tickets. I can't remember how he got them. He knew a guy who knew a guy who knew another guy who. Yeah, it goes on. But anyway, the point is, we had Pagoda ticket, so we were sitting in the Pagoda, and where I went out to like one of the Pagoda's arms, which is like a little a standing area or a smoking area for most people. Or most people go out there to smoke, but I went out there to go watch the finish of the race. And I recorded it on my phone, and I remember watching him coming down the front stretch. They were 2 wide, then they were 3 wide, then all of a sudden they became 4 wide, and I'm like, how much better can this get? And then Dempsey gets him at the line. I didn't know who won it. I was sitting dead in front of the yard of bricks, like had the perfect vantage point, and even I could not tell who won that race.
Video.
Yes, I do have the video. I'll send it to you after. You need to send it to
me. I want to watch that from your perspective. That'd be awesome.
It's not that great. It was recorded on. Oh God, what phone did I have back then? Did I have my old Samsung Galaxy S3 Mini? Oh, Lord have mercy. Oh, fun times. But I'll send it to you. Or anybody could just search, I think it's 2013 Freedom 100 finish home video or something on YouTube. You should be able to find it. But that's that. That's my featured, I guess, Freedom 100 segment of the week. So that's that for the show. Let's get on to what's in the windshield and in the conclusion here. Looking ahead to this week's races, the IMSA and WeatherTech Sports Car Championship will return June 12th at Detroit Belle Isle but nobody cares. I'm sorry. Nobody cares about Detroit. I'm sorry. Roger Penske, if you are listening to this, just go to Michigan instead. Go to Michigan. There's too much pushback from the locals. The race fans don't even like it. The track's coming apart. Just go back to Michigan. Come on. Anyway, Monaco Grand Prix is this weekend, so no more Racemas, but hey, we get the Monaco Grand Prix 1 week before Indianapolis, so that means F2 is back. By the way, F2 is back. F2 will be at Monaco this weekend. I'm excited for that. So we get some F2 racing and some Formula 1 racing. Fun times will be had by all. Practice for the Indianapolis 500 begins Tuesday, so if you're listening to this now, it's probably Wednesday. Practice is basically going on all this week. Qualifying is on Saturday, May 22nd, with bump day on Sunday. Then the Indianapolis 500 will be the week after that on May 30th. NASCAR is starting it off. We're going to Austin. We're going to the Circuit of the Americas, a track that I guarantee you, if you told me 10 years ago when the track was still being built and ground had just been broken, if you said, hey, in 10 years NASCAR will be there, I would have looked you in the face I just would have looked you dead in the eye and said, no freaking way. There's no way that's happening. And then if you told me, oh, F1 will still be there, but we don't know for how long, that I might actually have a hard time believing. I won't believe that F1 will still be there, but I will believe that F1 is up in the air about its future. That I'd believe. So, hey, I can go back and at least tell 15-year-old me the future someday. I don't know. But anyway, we got Camping World Truck Series and Xfinity Series will both be on Saturday, May 22nd. And then the Cup Series race will be on Sunday. So that is it for our humble show this week. Thank you so much for listening to the Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. We love having you guys listen to the show. We're so thankful for all of you for listening. We really appreciate all of your support, our followers. We had a little tweet go viral earlier today. I'm pretty excited to see that. A lot of people have some very heated opinions about that little tweet that we put out. So glad to see you guys interacting with us and joining the conversation, because this is conversation. We're two opinionated guys. At the same time, we're also journalists who try to stay objective. So if you guys have something that's more hot takey than we do, go ahead and let us hear it anytime you want. So, Josh, do you want to say anything here before we wrap up the show?
No, I'm excited for this weekend, though. I'm excited to see Cup cars, NASCAR at Dakota. I hate the Monacos this weekend, and not on Racemas. It definitely puts a damper on that, because Racemas, I hope that gets corrected for 22.
I really thought it was done so Alonso could run the 500, but I guess I was wrong.
I have a sickening feeling that this is going to become permanent, so that F1 doesn't have to compete with IndyCar for entries. And I'm like, no.
Why would it?
I same day. I want to watch the Monaco. I want to watch the 500, and then I want to watch the 600. That's how my day goes.
I agree with you. I miss watching. I'm gonna miss. Let's say hypothetically, I'm assuming I'm gonna get it credentialed. I think I still will. I wasn't there for the GP, but it's looking positive here for the 500. If I'm there, it's gonna be really, really sad not to watch the F1 Monaco Grand Prix in the morning. I always love the fact that they put that race on for everybody in the media center, and we're just gonna have to watch Channel 13's pre-race coverage, I guess. I don't know.
That's how we met. We met when they're in the media center, and we were in 18, and Monaco was playing on in the background.
Well, this is all stuff for another show. We gotta go. You guys gotta go. Thank you guys again for listening to us. Don't forget, follow us on social media at RPEETERS33, at roller_01, and at ROLLER_01, and at ROBANDROLLER. All on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Don't forget, you can listen to this podcast on YouTube at your own leisure. Find all the timestamps that are in there. Skip to whatever you want to listen to. No pressure, no hassle. You don't have to subscribe. You don't have to do anything. You just have to listen to us and enjoy it. Go ahead and listen to us on YouTube, or continue to listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, everywhere you get your podcasts. For Josh Roller, my name is Rob Peters. Thank you all for listening, and this has been the Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. Have a great weekend, everybody.